mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about episode 2 of the HBO series Winning Time, entitled Is That All There Is? I love when I have to go look at the episode title that I have written off to the side. But this episode was a lot different from episode 1. Episode 1, I think, kind of set the stage for the story. You know, the idea of here's how the Lakers are formed, here's where Magic came from, here's the direction Jerry Buss wants to take the team. All very story-driven. This episode, I think, was much more character-driven and helping us learn about these characters and why they behave the way they do. And I think that mainly revolved around three characters, Magic, Jerry Buss, and Jerry West. I'm going to talk about each of those briefly because I feel like that's like the main takeaway we're supposed to have from this episode is what we learned about these characters. Because we didn't really advance the story too much. You know, episode 1 ended with drafting Magic. We haven't even started the season yet. We're in that time period in between the draft and the season where Magic's back home in Lansing and he's, you know, getting ready to head off to LA. Looks like he's having a going away party. Jerry West is still crafting the roster, as well as Buss, who's trying to figure out how he's going to pay for whatever needs are made, whatever needs exist for the team. So, you know, we're this entire episode takes place at a time period that's got to be like a couple of months, maybe. So, like I said, a lot of this is spent on character. I want to start with Magic because, you know, everybody knows Magic is this fun-loving, nice, friendly kind of guy. And I think this episode showcased part of why he's so friendly and fun-loving. And I think it's because he's getting a lot of the attention that he desires. I think we learn about Magic in this episode. And I'm saying all this with it in mind, that all of these characterizations, not just Magic, could be exaggerated for dramatic effect. So, like, you know, I'm not sitting here saying that I learned from this episode what kind of person Magic Johnson is. I have no idea, but Magic, within the context of this show, is a guy who craves attention. You know, in episode 1, he was just flabbergasted that Cookie was not willing to come to LA with him should he be drafted by LA. She's kind of like, yeah, you go ahead. And he's like, you know, I'm about to be a huge star. You know, I'm about to be in the NBA. You know, I'm the shit. Why are you not, you know, smitten by me like everyone else is? And that drives him. And that drives him to a pretty obnoxious degree. You know, he does have his moment where he gives his mother this bathtub and she's completely unimpressed. And I gotta say, his mother was not good in that episode. I'm gonna leave. No, I'm sorry, in that scene. I'm gonna leave it at that. But I don't know. There's just a part of me that struggles to wrap my head around a parent being ungrateful for something that's given to them by a successful child. Now, if it was a tub that he bought with drug money and she's super religious, I get it. But like, you don't make it to the NBA without talent, an insane amount of hard work and dedication. Like, he earned this, and he earned it in a respectable way, not by, you know, selling crack to the kids. You know, so her dismissiveness of him, I thought, was just a really bad look for that character. But like I said, he wants this attention. He's not getting it from his mom. That troubles him. He's not getting it from Cookie. That troubles him. And then when he does get it, he reciprocates on that individual. So like there's a chick at his going away party that flirts with him or whatever. There's the attention, right? He's gonna have women falling all over him. He's got this one at his party in Lansing, and you know he does this thing with her in the car a couple times, and like that's not even that kind of shows the hypocrisy that exists in men a lot of times, right? He's telling Cookie, you know, you're the one I love, you're the only one for me, and then meanwhile he's smashing the girl that's giving him attention. So like it comes off, at least for me as the viewer, that this is the kind of guy who it really just revolves around him and how you make him feel. And that girl, the one at the party, made him feel wanted, so he gave her dick. The Cookie is not, and now he's obsessed with it. Like he just wants to win her over, you know. And I think that there is true love there. I mean, obviously we know that they ended up together, but well, I guess that's a spoiler. I don't know, but yeah, he marries her eventually, and so we know they end up together. And I do believe that he truly loves her, but I think a lot of that motivation comes from this is that one person who just seems completely unaffected by my charisma and my stardom, and I have to work hard to win her over. And then, I don't know how this story plays out in the details in between. I know that they get married, but I don't know the details in between. But like, this strikes me as the kind of guy that once she goes, okay, I'm ready to be with you now, then now he's gonna become cold, because now he's won. He got what he wanted. He got the attention of the person who didn't want to give him attention. So now that he has that, he backs off. So I kind of anticipate that happening. But I think his desire to win Cookie over manifests in this monstrously asshole-ish scene where he shows up to hoop with the guy that she's currently dating, and he totally just, like, it's not even just like a basketball embarrassment. It borders on like an emasculation, because he's shit talking him about not having sex with Cookie, and all the times and all the different ways that he's fucked her physically, mentally, all of these things. He's doing shitty stuff like bouncing the ball off his back, the no-look pass behind the back to the guy who dunks on him and knocks him over. Like, whenever you fall on the basketball court, that is the sign that you need to just go home. And that's why, when you see crossovers in the NBA now and a guy slips, it's like, oh shit. Like, cause that's it. That's like an unwritten rule in like black man basketball community, is you can't fall down. Like, if you get, like, you can't get dunked on and fall down. Like, if you get dunked on, that's bad enough. But if you fall down, that's it. And Magic, does, granted, it was the right play to make, but, well, no, it wasn't. He was being flashy. He had the layup. He dropped it off to the dude behind him. Dude behind him dunks on, I think this guy's name was Brian. Brian falls down. Like, it's a whole show of sexualized shit talking and just over the top embarrassment. Like, you're a guy that's playing in the NBA. He's just a regular dude out here on the court, and you are giving him your full fucking abilities, and just so that you can make him look bad in front of the girl that you want to like you, which is always something that generally backfires, but it doesn't when you have the mind, when you operate in that world, when you're that young. Those sorts of things, like she'll outwardly be like, oh, you were so mean, but then inwardly is like, oh man, he's such a man, he's so hot. And ultimately it ends up working out for him. It seems like she does come around to him at the end. But I think, again, to kind of wrap up what I think we learned about Magic is that he's starved for attention. If you give it to him, he'll give you some back. But if you don't give it to him, he's going to feel away, because he's flabbergasted. How could you not want to be totally engaged with him and involved with him? And that kind of ego can manifest in some really shitty ways. So we'll probably see that going down the road in the later episodes of the season. Jerry Buss, we learned that this is a guy who he admittedly he wanted to come in and he thought he could pay his way into success. And he meets with Red Auerbach, who's played by Michael Chiklis, a big Michael Chiklis fan here from the Shield fame. And Red Auerbach, for history's sake, and they touch on this, but they don't go too deep, but the Celtics had like the dynasty that they reference in this episode. The Celtics won the championship, I think, like 9 out of the 10 years in the 60s, something like that. They show the Lakers briefly, that the Lakers did actually manage to win a championship in the 71-72 season, and Jerry West felt kind of empty about it, but we'll talk about Jerry West a little bit later. But Buss comes in and he's like, I'm gonna, spend a lot of money. He meets with Red Auerbach, and Red Auerbach basically is like, you're not built like me. You're somebody who's coming in here to have sex, spend money, live the lifestyle, and I'm here to win, and I'm here to willing to do whatever it takes to make that happen, which he has evidenced due to the prior, which he showed with the prior decade of success. And I'm just realizing, did I say this? No, it was the 60s. I was about to say, was it the 70s? No, it was the 60s. But where the Celtics won like pretty much every year. But Buss comes to the realization that he needs to be coming from the perspective of Red Auerbach and not from the perspective that he had coming in of just like buy a team, spend money, live lavish, have a good time, and now we're amongst the elite. Like, he is now obsessed with winning. And I think we needed this episode to kind of get him past that hump, because it felt like it was just about he wasn't taking winning seriously enough until he sat down and talked to Red Auerbach a couple times. And then I figured that would be something that would do it when you're around that level of success. So he doesn't really show the commitment that's needed until the end of the episode, when he gets in, he has a team meeting, he gets in front of everybody, and he essentially says, this is the last day of us kind of just floating by. From here on out, we're focused on winning every game and winning championships and all that good stuff. So he seems to have turned a corner and started to take winning a little bit more seriously than merely talking about it. Like, hey, I'm willing to spend whatever because I'm Jerry Buss and I got money. Like, he's now actually serious about winning. And the episode ends with Jerry West offering his resignation as coach. So this will be my a segue into the portion about Jerry West, because I found Jerry West, even though we spent a lot of time talking about Magic, and I found Magic to be interesting, what we learned about Jerry West in this episode, I think, was the most interesting. Because this is a guy here who has always dealt with, again, I'm not speaking about Jerry West, the person. I don't know how true this is, but the Jerry West in this show is someone who's always dealt with these feelings of inadequacy. We open up the episode in, 1951, West Virginia, and he's overhearing his parents arguing about what we find out is his dead older brother. His dead older brother must have been killed in the Korean War. And we hear the parents, not the parents, but the father has mainly like taken sides, in that he looks at Jerry as the mother's kid, and he looks at the dead brother as his own kid. And then again, I could be wrong. Maybe it's one of those situations where one of them had that kid outside of that marriage by someone else, and then they got married. So technically, that kid's not. Technically, they're both not the children of each of them. I don't know the scenario, but I do know that he has an older brother who died in the Korean War. And we have to hear Jerry has to hear his parents arguing over, I wish it had been you two instead of the brother that died. So he's always had that feeling of inadequacy. You couple that with a guy who is constantly driven to win, who has been successful and then gets in the NBA and gets smacked around by the Celtics a whole bunch of times, wins a Finals MVP despite losing in the series, and now you have a guy who's gonna be resentful, who's gonna be pissed off, who's gonna have a chip on his shoulder, and it just adds a little bit of context, I think, to Jerry West's character when you think about these feelings of inadequacy that he's probably dealt with for the majority of his life, and now he's in a situation where he's still it's 1972. He's coming off of finally winning a championship, the Lakers' first championship, by the way. He's Jerry fucking West. Like I said, this isn't like he's just some guy. Like he's a huge star. He's a great player, but he still has that chip on his shoulder over what happened with the Celtics, and then I think largely what he grew up around with his parents. And at the end of the episode, he has a conversation with his wife. And he seems like he's trying to reconcile with her. He hasn't been around. He wants to be around. She talks about how angry all of this makes him being a coach. There's a scene earlier where he talks with Bill Sharman, kind of the same thing. Bill Sharman makes a great point about, like this, rewind a little bit. This scene opens with Jerry West like on the floor in his tidy whities, looking like he's in the fetal position crying. He wasn't crying, but that's what he looked like. And I'm looking at this like, Jerry Buss just told you to come up with whatever you need to win a championship and he'll make it happen, and somehow you're down on yourself. And Bill says, like, you're afraid that if you get all the pieces to win and you don't, then you'll have to accept the fact that it's not them, it's you. Like you won't have any more excuses for not winning if you get all these players or whatever it is that you need, and then it'll reflect on you. There will be no more excuses. And I thought that was a great point. That's kind of what he has to live with. And the episode ends after this conversation with his wife. And he tenders his resignation and says that they need a new coach, they being the Lakers. And this makes sense, because it's one of those situations where his whole life has been toxic, and he seems entirely unhappy the entire time we've seen him in these two episodes. So like we don't see necessarily too much of how Jerry West felt as a player, other than the flashbacks of him being dissatisfied with the MVP trophy and whatnot. But most of the time we spend with him as a coach, and he's completely pissed off and angry and just unreasonable and ridiculous the entire time. So it does feel like something that is just too toxic for him to have a happy life. And if he wants to have a happy life and have a happy life with his wife and all that good stuff, he probably needs to walk away. So that's where we end the episode. One thing that I thought was interesting too is that in the preview for the next episode, we see a lot of Pat Riley, and I'm still shocked that Adrian Brody is playing. He looks nothing like Pat Riley. But anyway, we see a lot of Pat Riley, but Pat Riley doesn't become the Lakers coach until like 81, 82, something like that. So I'm wondering if they're gonna, but they can't skip over Paul Westhead being the coach because they won a championship with that. So, and with this young Magic rookie. So I'm interested to see where we go in episode 3. But that's kind of what I wanted to spend the bulk of this video talking about, was those 3 characterizations and what we learned about those people in this episode. And then now with that knowledge going forward, we can kind of like not necessarily predict, but like we can know who we're dealing with when, say, a Magic Johnson comes into a situation where he's around a person or people who aren't giving him the attention that he feels he is warranted to him. We can now look at Jerry Buss as somebody who's going to take winning more seriously. And if we continue to see Jerry West, we may not, we can now look at him as somebody who has essentially handled, or at least internalized, his feelings of inadequacy and his anger, and has stepped away and is putting himself in a position to not be so angry. But we'll see. There's a part of me that feels like we might not see him anymore. I don't know. But 16 minutes, I want to wrap up with a couple of thoughts. Like I mentioned, Red Auerbach's played by Michael Chiklis. That was pretty cool. I was noting like casting choices. There's a scene at Magic's house in Lansing that, like I said, it appeared to be a going away party. I believe I heard Donnell Rawlings, who you guys will probably recognize from Chappelle's Show, as one of the friends who was talking. And then I definitely saw Earthquake, a comedian who has an awesome new special on Netflix right now. It's like executive produced by Dave Chappelle, but really good special. If you're like fairly young and you don't know who Earthquake is, watch that shit. But Earthquake was like a huge comedian, I want to say maybe like the 90s or so. But yeah, it was interesting to see Earthquake on there. We're also introduced to Jessie Buss, who is Jerry's mother, played by Sally Field. She's both about to be his mother and his accountant. He took the books out of Claire's hands because I love how he looked at the camera to let us know this, but not clue her in, that if she looks at the book, she's going to see how thin the money is being stretched. And now he's got someone in his family to kind of work the books to make things happen. So I think that's going to be really interesting down the line to see how Sally Field manipulates the money aspect to help make some moves, because they've got the centerpieces right now, but there's a lot of pieces yet for the Lakers to attain between the roster that they currently have on the show and the roster that the Showtime Lakers become. So still moves to be made. 2 more things. One, John C. Reilly continues to be great in this role. I'm loving him in this Clark and in this role, and also Jason Clark, who plays Jerry West, I think is doing an incredible job as well. But John C. Reilly is just magnetic, man. Like he's doing such a great job. I don't know. I'm struggling to even put it into words, man. He's really captivating. And then lastly, I love the scene. There's a moment where Jerry West is kind of selling players on this plan to start Magic at the 4. I'm getting a little bit too. Start Magic at power forward, which is a spot near the center position that Kareem plays, rather than having Magic at point guard. For those who might not be aware, point guards are generally smaller players. Magic was like 6'9", huge point guard. And he's known as a point guard, but Magic is also known as somebody who has played all 5 positions. So keep that in mind. But he walks around selling. He first sells Norm Nixon on this idea by basically going, yeah, you're still the point guard. Easy sell right there. You're still the point guard. Don't worry about it. We're going to have Magic do something else. He's not going to come off the bench, but he's not going to take your spot. And then he goes over to Kareem, and he meets with Kareem, and he goes over there with the purpose of essentially selling Kareem on the idea of Magic playing the power forward to help alleviate some of the beatings that he's taking. Double, triple teams, elbows, all this kind of stuff. Magic can take some of that heat off. And I can't really go into detail about the scene, but I love the way the scene ends. Jerry West notes that he's reading a book. Kareem shows the title of the book, and Jerry West goes like, "It's on my list," which this book would never be on Jerry West's list. And then they exchange a Muslim greeting, and Jason Clarke, whatever he did with his face, it's almost like he didn't expect Kareem to give the customary response. And Kareem gives the response, and it's almost like Jerry West was just like, "What did you even say to me right now?" Like it was such a well acted scene, because you could tell this is a guy that just was here to suck up, and he got way out of his comfort zone with with his Muslim greeting. So that's all I got for this episode. Again, I'm still really loving this show. It's super fun, super interesting. I hope you guys are enjoying this analysis. I went a little bit longer than I would have liked at 20 minutes, but I really want to spend some time talking about what we learned about these characters. So I'm assuming episode 3, we're going to be getting ready for the start of the season, pulling in a new coach, which I'm going to be assuming is Paul Westhead. I know that's played by Jason Segel. So lots of good stuff going forward, and I'll see you guys next week for episode 3. Peace.